On this week's podcast, I am talking with senior licensed Reiki master teacher Karen Harrison about chapter 6 of the Reiki Business Book, Business Skills. Welcome, Karen.
Welcome. I'm glad to see you. Happy to be here. And I read your chapter and you've got a lot of great information in there.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to talk about it with the listeners and the readers. Before we begin, I just want to let everybody know that we've got some online and in person, a hybrid class that you can attend either online or in person at the farm in May and June. I've got a full lineup of level 1 and 2 and master licensed classes. I also have it's being followed by ICRT Animal Reiki training, level 1 and 2 and master. And that's all being followed by the Karuna Reiki class, as well as an animal communication class. So I hope you can join us. And those are all a combination of online and in person. I know some of you want to make it to the farm. Those will be the first in-person classes I'll be teaching since my last class in the United Kingdom, just as COVID was happening. So I'm really excited to start seeing people again. I also want to let you know that if you don't already get our newsletter, go ahead and check out the link in the podcast and just stay up to date as to when we will have the pre-order available for the book and when the book will be available. I'll be letting people know in the weekly newsletter. And also in July, the classes in May are all in the Atlantic time zone, which is an hour ahead of the Eastern time. And in July, I'll have another lineup of level 1 and 2 master, animal 1 and 2 and master, only online. And those will be also in the Atlantic time zone. So I'd love to have you join us for any of those. Karen, what do you have coming up?
I have Reiki 1 and 2 classes coming up in April. They're going to be hybrid classes. I have Reiki Master classes coming up August and October. They're going to be hybrid classes, figuring out that technology. What fun.
And I am looking forward to that too.
Yes. And then I've got an in-person animal Reiki 1 and 2 class coming up in June that I'm going to co-teach with Sabrina Whiteman, working with horses. And then I've got Animal Reiki Master in March with Karen Kaig. So thank you for your contribution to all that material. It is so fun to work with and teach. I love the energy and it just suits my inner animal.
I love it. It was one of the great honors of my life to work with Colleen and Robin and Sue to create the Animal Reiki courses for the ICRT. And I learned so much and it was just amazing, just witnessing and listening to that energy and bringing it in. So I'm so glad that it resonates with so many people.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I love teaching it. I know the animals that participate just love it. And so it's really fun. Yeah. Before we go too much further, I'm just going to invite everyone to join me in a brief invocation to activate their Reiki energy and just help them get the most out of this podcast this week. So I'm going to invite us all to bring our hands together in Gasho and breathe, just letting go of the busyness of your day and of everything you need to think about later. This time that we're together is about you and for you. So give yourself this time to focus your attention on you. And just letting go of any stress or overwhelm that you may experience when you think about some of the details around starting a Reiki business. Calling in your symbols and just asking for their assistance and letting that all go. Understanding that a Reiki business can work and can come together in divine timing, and that we don't need to finish every step immediately. Some of what Karen and I will be talking about is going to be out in the future. Some of it you may have already done and you may have already gone past, and that's okay. Just listen with an open mind, willing to learn, to grow, and to consider other perspectives. And we thank you for being the great light that you are in the world today, for shining so brightly, and for considering a Reiki business in one form or another that will help you reach more and more people. And that helps Reiki reach more and more people. We appreciate you. Namaste and amen.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Karen, to start with, I just want to let everyone know that I have so much respect for you as a businesswoman and businesswoman to businesswoman. And one of the things that I really struggled with, even though I had a strong business background, was putting business tools and techniques together with Reiki. And yet not only have you made that into an art form, but you have done that in a way that, and then you've created all of these wonderful articles, and you've actually stepped into a role as the co-director of the licensed teacher program. And you've just done your best to reach us and teach us how to do that. And I'm blown away by your success, by how many people you teach every year. You really are amazing. I really enjoy watching you do your thing, watching you reach people, watching you teach people, watching your beautiful spirit. You're an inspiration. And I'd like to include, we will put some links to some of Karen's articles, both in the podcast and in the book, because I didn't see any sense of recreating a lot of those. Karen is very astute with her business. She's a lot more organized than I am. And so we're going to show you that there can be both ways of doing things. You can be a little less organized like I am, or a little more organized like she is, and it all works. But it's just such a joy to have you here. And I knew from the start, this is the chapter that I wanted to talk with you about. You have so much experience with this, and you've inspired so many of us. I know that you had a chance to have a look through the chapter, and I just wonder if you can share with the listeners some of your thoughts about it and anything that may have stood out to you.
Sure. Let me start by just saying blessings back to you, Pam, and all that you've created. And Pam gets inspired, and then she just takes something on, like, oh, let's write an animal Reiki course. And let's just go teach in Australia, New Zealand, and England. And yeah, if we want someone bold that's willing to try new things, Pam's your woman. So she's out there leading the way, and what a leader, taking on all sorts of things like writing a book. I mean, I've thought about writing a book, but nah, Pam will do it.
Thank you, Karen. I have to admit, writing a book is a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. And I thought it was going to be a lot of work. So it's also such inspired work because of Reiki. And the fact that when I sit down to write, I just open to my Reiki guidance and I let it flow through. And even in the editing process, which is very left brain, I just allow Reiki to flow and I listen. And so thank you so much. But yeah, it has been a lot of work. And when I outlined with one of my Reiki shares, I outlined what I had in mind for a timeline as far as when the book would be available, but I did so with the caveat. I didn't record myself on that, and I did so with the caveat that this is my first book, so I might be very naive putting together this rough timeline. I am hoping it will be available to people before summer. I don't know if that's going to happen. It looks to be on track, but every time I move forward and finish one section, I realize, oh, there's this whole other new thing that I hadn't thought about and that I have to then tidy up. So it's been such a learning curve, but I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
what did you think of this section? This is a section, Karen, that I feel you, like I said, I feel you've moved it into an art form in the way that you manage your business. And I also know we have very different styles, but so what stood out to you and what did you think?
Gosh, Pam, I don't know that we have time to talk about all these categories. I
We
mean,
don't need to.
wow, boundaries, business consciousness, worthiness, open to success, current and future clients, keeping the conversation current. What do you do if you have disgruntled clients or students? Embracing technology, hiring assistants, record keeping, getting paid, accounting, bookkeeping. Wow. Okay. One of the things that I was thinking about is when I've had students wanting to start a Reiki business, many of them are so excited about it. They want to just quit their job and start on it full time. And if you're independently wealthy, that's a great idea. And if you're not, it's not such a great idea, because usually to create a new business, it's going to take 18 months to 5 years to produce the kind of income that you need to live on. And starting at part-time is a really great idea. So that's one of the things that I've been talking with some of my students about recently who are wanting to start their Reiki business. Oh, this would be so much more fun than my current job, which is not fulfilling. Well, yes, it is. And it takes some time to develop that because there are so many categories.
I agree with you 100%, Karen. And I actually wrote in some of the earlier chapters, and I know that I just sent you the one before the podcast, just about possibly weaving Reiki into what you're already doing. And also the idea of when you are ready to do a business, starting part-time, because there's probably a reason. You were probably passionate about what you're doing at one point. You just might be burned out now and this sort of thing. And so just allowing Reiki to heal that for you. But I think when you jump right in and need to have an income from your business, that puts an awful lot of pressure on you to make money and be successful right away. And it can take the fun right out of it, and the joy and the magic. And even with my business, I had two other businesses. When I started my Reiki business, I was also teaching horseback riding lessons with my Hiddenbrook Farm herd of horses. And on top of that, I had an essential oil business. So no one business had to make all the income. And I found it so interesting because some months most of the income would come from the oils, and other months most of the income would come from the horses, and other months most of the income would come from the Reiki classes and sessions. And it really went back and forth for a while. When you started, did you start off full time, or did you have another business that paid the bills?
So I began my counseling business in 1993. I started off in private practice. Yeah. And to make sure my private practice worked, I had contract work with other places. And at one point, my son said to me, "Mommy, won't anybody give you a full-time job?" Oh. So then I started my Reiki business in 1998, and I already had all the structure in place for a business. I had the office, I had the bookkeeping system all set up, I had the payment system set up. All the things that I needed were already in place. And so I really didn't need to add much in for my Reiki business. I just started doing my Reiki business alongside my counseling business. So that made it easy for me. I'd already had 4 years of working with the structure and putting that in place. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think helped me a lot is I had spent 9 years in finance. Now I'm really not all that great at it. My joke is that I did finance to overcome my math phobia. So anyway, one of the first things I did was have a bookkeeper come help set me up on QuickBooks. And then she taught me how to enter things. And so I did that for about 3 years. And then finally I hired somebody to do that, because that's one of my other secrets of success is hire it done. Those are my 3 little magic words.
Hire it.
Yeah. So there's lots of different ways of setting up your books. And in your book, you talked about a simple way to do it, which I think is probably perfect for someone beginning a business. Keep it as simple as possible. But as you have more transactions going forward, it's super helpful to have an accounting system set up, and having one online means that your CPA can check it remotely, your bookkeeper can enter transactions remotely, you can have your bank accounts linked to your program and have the transactions automatically downloaded into your accounting program, which makes the whole reconciliation process much quicker and easier, and gives you these nice reports that you can check on your income and your expenses and see what your net is. And I don't know, I think looking at those reports is fun. And I don't know, maybe I geek out on that a little bit.
It is interesting that you say that, because I haven't done that with I just once a year take my receipts and organize notes to my accountant or my bookkeeper, who organizes them for my accountant. But my accountant team just retired, so I will have a new accountant this year that I haven't met yet. And I may need to start doing things differently. I may need to get a little more organized on that side, but I really like the way that I've been able to do it for the last several years this way. But one of the things that I do like to do with my clients who are planning to start out is give them an Excel spreadsheet to create a cash flow, because one of the things that is there's an expression in business, cash is king, and it doesn't matter how successful your business is, if you can't cash flow it, it won't work. Like there's a good chance it won't be successful. And so as you say that, that made me think that anybody that I'm coaching with a new business or any kind of business, I get them to fill out their expenses, their anticipated income, and work it all through and make sure that it's going to work for a year. Or not. So I think
that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. But I think with your reports, I think you're really able to stay on top of things that way. And you use a few softwares with that, don't you, Karen?
What did you say? Stock words?
Sorry, you use some different software with that.
Oh, software. Yes. Yes. So I use QuickBooks Online. I've got my whole company set up in there, and I looked at all my categories of income and expenses. And then with the bookkeeper, she helped me choose the categories and create my chart of accounts. And so then all my income and expenses go into, these different categories. And then that creates the nice report on profit and loss and the assets that I get at the end of the year. So I've got all the information that I need to take to my CPA to do my taxes.
Yeah, I expect my CPA would appreciate it if I would do that too. So, I haven't started doing it yet, but I can see the benefit of it. Now tell me about Hire It Done. And that's something that, as we went through the licensed teacher program, it's very intensive. It's over 1,000 hours of training. It's very busy. And as we went through it, I know that was some of the coaching that I received, was to bring in assistance, that you can't do everything yourself. And I talk about that a little bit in the book, that, even if you don't have money to pay for different types of assistance, you may be able to find somebody who's willing to trade for Reiki classes or Reiki sessions. But it is, if you do find the money to pay for people to help you, it is usually money very well spent. And I didn't myself personally, I didn't want to hire people to answer my emails. I'm a very fast typist, and I wanted to keep, and I didn't want anybody to create my newsletter. I wanted to do that. And so what I did was actually looked around the farm and said, what are the things that I don't enjoy doing anymore? And actually, I love the horses, but I wasn't enjoying teaching riding lessons anymore. I've just done it for so many years that, so I hired my apprentice, who she agreed to step up and teach the riding lessons. And she does a fantastic job with them. She finds them a lot of fun, and she puts a lot more into it than I was putting into it. I looked at the grounds and the gardens and I said, yeah, I'm not enjoying, like, I can't stay on top of those. So I hired somebody to be a groundskeeper and look after the gardens and the grounds. And I really don't enjoy my housekeeping. So I hired somebody to help me with that. And it's just been, and even grooming the dogs, I wasn't able to stay on top of my long-haired dogs enough. So I started bringing them to a groomer. And so it was really interesting. I just made a list of the things that I did on a regular basis. And I decided to hide not necessarily the things around my business, because I like doing the things around my business. I decided to hire some of the other stuff out. But you've made this into an art form. Can you tell us about, because you have assistants and they work like it's like an orchestra, the way that you have it sorted out. So tell us how you do that.
Oh, wow. So I do some of the same things that you do as a single woman business owner. I have all the things around my house hired done that I can, including balancing my checkbooks. That's not something I enjoy. Having a maid and somebody to take care of the lawn and just whatever there is to do. Of course, the maintenance, I don't do that. That's not my skill set.
Right.
So anything that I don't enjoy or I'm not good at, or if I just think that this will allow me more time to devote to my Reiki business, then I hire that done. Now, in my Reiki business, I've got someone who handles all the administrative parts of my Reiki business. So the processing of students after they register, entering them into reiki.org to get their certificates, tracking the payment system. And since COVID, she's been working remotely. So she created these really cool online tracking sheets for me, and I can enter information into it. She can enter information into it. It's all kept online and up to date about what they've paid, how much their balance is, if they're requesting the continuing education paperwork, and so forth, if they need any special accommodations for class. So all of that is tracked, including she's created sheets for transfer students. So students that sign up for a class, but then at the last minute aren't able to take the class. And then I've got transfer tracking sheets for that. And then I have somebody processing my payments, my checks, someone handling all of my QuickBooks, entering all of that, helping to order supplies. And then when I have my in-person classes, I have another assistant come over and help me set everything up, put everything out, because I set my house up differently for classes with the TV trays, the chairs, the COVID stuff, individual towels for everybody, a sheet for everybody for their table, so that we don't have to take the time to wipe the table down between. We just put their sheet on that they use for the weekend, and
right,
forms and everything, and then helping to put all that stuff away. And then I also have an essential oil business. So I have someone coming and helping process all of that information and paperwork, and then helping with technology. Like when I decided to do a mass texting program, she researched which programs were out there and then how to use it. And then she trained me on it, and then I've taken it from there, but she uploads information into it for me. And then recently I decided to get online scheduling. So similar thing, she did the research, presented me with the spreadsheet of all the different kinds there are, how much they cost, what they could do, what they couldn't do. And then she trained me how to use that. So I've got that set up. I find, okay, what do the assistants like to do? I've got, I don't know, 5 different ones, and each of them does a piece of it. And one reason I haven't given it to just one person is different people have different skills and abilities. And one person may not want to or like to do a certain task, but maybe somebody else does like it. And then also, I've been in business long enough that I've had times where my assistants have gotten sick and had to take anywhere from 3 to 10 weeks off. Then I have them write procedure manuals for their positions, hopefully before they get sick, so that then another assistant or I can read through it and try and figure out, okay, how do we do this so that these tasks are still getting handled and done while the person is off work. So that is definitely one of my big secrets to success, is hire it done. And so that is really good, more for maybe not right in the beginning of your very beginning business. You may not be able to hire as much done, but as your business gets more established, the more that you can hire done, the more that allows you time to teach the classes, host a Reiki circle, write articles, do all the things that only you can do.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I think that was the advice my accountant gave me. I was trying to figure out whether I was going to try to do my taxes on my own, and he asked me, what is your rate? What is your hourly fee? And when I told him, he said, okay, so how many hours do you think it's going to take you to do your taxes? And I didn't want to do my taxes. I was just looking at it as financial, and I was just getting started, and could I afford to have somebody help me? And he just really made me see. He said, I told him how long it was going to take me. And he said, so this is how much I'm going to cost. And it was a fraction of what it was going to take out of my potential earnings. And not only that, but he is so much better at it than I am, that he taps me into programs and things that I wouldn't know to do. And he knows, so it not only saves time and headache, but it just frees me up to do what I'm doing. Now, when people just get started, that they might think, I can't afford an assistant, I can't hire an assistant. In my Reiki mentoring class, one of the things that was a common theme was there were people that didn't feel comfortable creating their own websites. And I said, so don't. There's a good chance you can send energy to finding the right person to help you. And if you don't have the financial means, send energy to finding the right person to help you who will trade for Reiki classes or sessions. And that really helped a lot of people get off the ground with some of because there are, even when you start, there are going to be some skills you're not great at. And so how do you find the assistance that you need when you go forward? And interestingly, looking at all your assistants, I think that what that might tell our viewers and our listeners is that it is possible to be very successful in this business, so that you can have a number of assistants helping you. But how do you find the right?
That is a really good question. So first of all, I think about, okay, what sort of things do I need done? What sort of task? And then I think, who do I know that might be open to doing that? And interestingly enough, most of my assistants are either my friends or Reiki students or a friend of a friend.
Nice.
I've been through several different assistants at this stage in my career after having been in business with my Reiki business since 1998. But I don't know, working with my friends, that can be dicey and challenging, but it can also be rewarding because I don't know, as a single woman business owner who loves her business, I spend a lot of time doing my Reiki business. So when I get to work with my assistants, it's also this is partly my social time. So they come over and work, and we get to work together and catch up with each other also as part of what we're doing. And so that's mostly what I've done.
That's really fun, Karen. I love that. Is there anything else in the chapter that you'd like to mention or add to?
Sure. How about that worthiness issue?
That's so common, isn't it?
Oh, I know it is. And whenever I talk to people who are new at offering Reiki, they think, well, my Reiki's not good enough. And then they're worried about themselves. But what I like to tell them is focus on being of service to someone else. Just focus on someone else, not on yourself and your own issues, and get yourself out of the way. My only goal is to do the best job I can with each session to help the person in the best way I can. Am I going to be able to perform a miracle? Probably not. Can I provide some comfort? Can I provide some help and support? That is my goal. And so just focusing on the being a service rather than your own abilities and your own worthiness.
And Reiki isn't about us. And that's one of the things I definitely struggled with, the worthiness issue. I've said it a few times in this series of podcasts that when I met William Rand, I mispronounced my name 3 times. And I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Rand, I'm just so nervous to be here. And he said, why? And I blurted out with the honesty that empaths are so imbued with, because Reiki masters are wonderful and amazing people. And I'm not, I'm just me. And so I think we all struggle with that at some point in that, and worthiness and success consciousness. That's something you've written about, Karen, and I deliberately didn't read it prior to, because I wanted to talk about success consciousness and hopefully not plagiarize your work, but it's so interesting. I've noticed this in my journey. I've noticed this with my students. When you look at it, we are as worried about, there's just as much fear usually and just as much resistance around success as there is to failure. You would think that, okay, I'm so nervous about this because I'm worried I'm going to fail. No, a lot of us are worried about it because what if we succeed? And that shows up just as prevalently, because it can be difficult to be open to success consciousness. What do you tell people about that?
Focusing again on being of service rather than someone else, and just trusting that you'll be able, with the help of Reiki, to do the best job that you can with your session, with your teaching. That to start off small with your teaching, for example, start with just teaching Reiki 1. You don't need to take on Reiki 1 and 2 at the same time. And then maybe find someone to share the teaching with you. Maybe each of you brings a friend and each of you teaches half the material. Then that makes it easier. You don't have to get together the whole class. Or here's another easy way to do it. Divide the material up for Reiki 1 and 2 over 3 or 4 nights. And that way, each week, you just have to prepare 2 or 3 hours of material and try it out first on your friends. Have them be your guinea pigs, have them give you some feedback about it, and charge a lower fee, or maybe you offer your first classes for free or trade or something. And you just get out there and you start and try, and you're going to get better with time. But if you don't start somewhere, you won't get better. I know when I started, there were so many experienced Reiki master teachers in Kansas City where I live, and that was rather intimidating. So I thought, well, I just want to be the best Reiki teacher I can be. And so I took the ICRT classes. I reviewed my classes. That helped a lot, because I learned so much when I reviewed with an ICRT teacher, things that I hadn't learned in my first Reiki 1 and 2 class. And then that gave me more help and information about teaching, and the manual is so good. Just jump in, try it, and be brave.
Be brave. Yes, it's true. By starting, we know people are going to stick with it because it is addictive, isn't it? When, it's such a fulfilling experience. It's so rewarding. to help somebody in a Reiki session. It's so rewarding to connect somebody with Reiki and bear witness to what they do with it in their lives and the beauty that they create with it. And it's just incredible, isn't it? I know one of my students, and I'll have the quote in the book, I think, but I'll paraphrase it for right now. But one of the things she said to me from the Reiki mentoring course, because a lot of my students took it in different directions. They took it in whatever direction was right for them. And she was actually, it gave her the confidence to create her own Reiki mentoring course. And it had a very different direction than mine had. It was, and in fact, it sounds fantastic. I've written about it in the Reiki Business Book. But her comment was, I don't know if you realize how many people you have reached, because you reach someone and then they reach someone, and it just expands. And that's what I want for my students and my clients and the people who read this book. I want that incredible feeling of just being able to reach out and make a difference to someone, and then knowing that difference is just going to stretch and expand and continue throughout the world. It's just so rewarding, isn't it, Karen?
Yes, and having it all in a book is so convenient, rather than having an article here, an article there, YouTube here, YouTube there. And having your personal experience shared in there, I think, help bolster people's confidence, so that you just start small and build from there. And some people are going to be more drawn to sessions and some more drawn to teaching. If you're going to teach, then it's also important to do some sessions to inform your teaching.
Yes.
So there's so many different ways to go with it. Like you said, adding Reiki to your current business, which I think brings up the whole idea of boundaries. That's been another interesting thing that I, coach people on when they are starting off doing Reiki sessions, because a lot of times I'll see people want to give, an unlimited amount of time in their session. Right. And that can be a challenge, both for you and for the person receiving. So if you've scheduled an hour time and then pretty soon your session's gone to an hour and a half or 2 hours, you have to figure out, okay, now what did I really earn for that time? And also, what about my client and respecting their time commitments? They may have an appointment that they are now running late for because I've gone over.
Yeah. I love that. And something, I think I talked about boundaries, but I didn't talk about boundaries with time. And I think that's a really good subject.
Yeah, time boundaries, because that's pretty easy. If you talk a little bit before your session and then after the session, and how much time are you really allotting for the session? And so a lot of times I'll find people have allotted an hour, but they're really taking an hour and a half for at least their first session. So then advertise your first session as an hour and a half then, and get compensated accordingly for that if you're going to spend an hour and a half.
Yes. I noticed that I am probably going to need to do that, because I have an hour and a half, and I also have half-hour sessions. And in the half-hour sessions, we have to get right to it. There's no time for chit chat. We have to get what are the issues and get in the energy. But when I have a new client, I struggle to keep them within the hour time limit. So I notice I'm probably going to have to do that too, Karen, is for new clients. The first session needs to be a bit longer. Yeah. What else? Was there anything else that stood out to you, Karen?
Gosh, all sorts of things. How about, I think technology is probably one of the bigger things, because we are constantly changing with technology. I mean, who knew that we would be teaching classes on Zoom, and then keeping up with things like, okay, online scheduling and texting programs in the ever-changing world of email marketing and search engine optimization and ever-changing websites, and then Facebook and Instagram algorithms changing and figuring out, okay, now how do I reach people? Right. staying current with technology and making technology your friend and your ally is important. Learning, okay, what webcams do I need? What microphones do I need? I've got my nice, huge Yeti microphone here, and
I'm using
like,
a Yeti too.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, I think you hit mute when you picked up your microphone, Karen. There you
Oops.
go. There you go.
There you go. There you go. That mic can do all sorts of things.
No, I agree with you about technology, though. And I have to admit that technology is something I was not comfortable with. And going through the licensed teacher program, it's impossible to go through that program without your weaknesses coming up to be healed. And that kept coming up to be healed. And my mentor, Colleen Benelli, kept saying, Pam, you have to heal that, because you can reach so many more people if you will only embrace technology. But I have to admit, I did not embrace technology until I was in the Heathrow airport and seeing the panic and distress all around me. And I finally listened to her words and said, she's right. I need to help people. The best way to help them right now is I sat down in the airport and tried to figure out how to do my first Facebook Live. And I literally said, I had my tablet, because I had just bought a new computer. My old computer was getting transferred over while I was in England teaching. So I was just teaching with my tablet and an in-person class. And I had my earphones in, and I remember saying, okay, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I think I have Facebook Live figured out, and hopefully you can hear me. And a couple people typed, we can hear you. It's great. Okay. Let's do my first Facebook Live. And it wasn't long after I got back. I think it was the very next day, because it did take me a few days. The airports were closing, the borders were closing. And we had our LRMT, Licensed Reiki Master Teacher meeting with the ICRT, and William said, we're going to begin teaching online. And you know what? It just in the time between the airport and getting home, I had decided to embrace technology. All the resistance that I had to embracing it was gone. And I can't believe now that I create a podcast, that I have an editing software that I've learned to use, that automatically takes all the ums out when I figured out how to host a podcast. And that was a big learning curve. Like I can't believe how I've been able to embrace technology. I do find in our masterclass, since we've gone online, there's one experience that we do, the Empowered in the River of Life. And I do find that aligns you a little bit more with technology. I found it did for me, like it. And so now I'm a lot braver. I don't know a ton about technology, but every week I take on a new I decide to learn something new, and I look up on YouTube, hey, how do you do this? And figure it out. So,
yes.
But you've embraced technology from the beginning, haven't you?
Oh, it's been a slow process. It's probably not my favorite thing either. It's necessary, and staying current with technology is important. I still don't know how to edit my podcast. I haven't done that. There's still more, of course, to learn. I'm always working on it and just open to seeing, okay, what am I going to learn now? I have to admit, I had my scheduling software ready to go, and it probably took 3 months before I finally, okay, I'm going to need some more Reiki to face this and figure out how to use it. And I know I've been resisting it. And I had all these made up fears about how it was going to be difficult and stuff. And it's like now, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I can just easily schedule a client. I was eating my lunch and a client called, wanted to schedule, and boom, put it in there so that I don't end up double booked. It's one of my main fears, paper calendar and online scheduling. And so, anyway, okay. So a lot of people have had online scheduling a long time. I've just had mine in the last maybe 4 months.
I put mine in December.
That's pretty much, mine. That's about when I got mine started, November, December.
And I love it. I actually did all the work in November, but I already had clients fully booked into the middle of December. So I didn't start accepting new clients until I think it was December 17th. And oh my gosh, I love my online scheduler. One of the things that it really helps me with is I offer a free 15-minute session to people who want to ask about the classes or ask about their Reiki journey. Where should they go next? And because that can sometimes be a little confusing or a little daunting. And sometimes people say, you're offering Usui Reiki and masters in Karuna. Which one should I take? And Karuna is an advanced masters. You have to have the Usui first, but not everybody understands that. So it was trying to fit in those 15-minute sessions and getting back and forth to people. It was starting to take a lot of time to manage and I was double booking people sometimes when I had a paper schedule. I was sometimes just not writing something down and missing it. And so now I can just send people the link to my schedule. They can pick a time that works for them. It converts the time zone for them so they don't have to guess, because I'm in the Atlantic time zone, which most people don't even understand that it exists or even realize that it's a thing, because it is 1 hour difference for me. I have people all the time tell me we'll arrange to meet at a certain time Atlantic, and they'll show up at that time Eastern, and they'll say, no, there's no such thing as Atlantic. Actually, there is. But anyway, I've learned to put the equivalent of Eastern time in a lot of my things. But I love that online software. And now I don't even worry about my paper calendar. I just have the times that are booked out in my online software, booked out on my calendar. And I just open it up online and see who I'm seeing that day. And it's beautiful.
Well, yay. Yay. So that's the thing. We just have to keep staying current with what is the new technology and what can it do. And
a lot of technology I've had to learn to use to write this book, Karen. There's a Grammarly that goes in and just checks my grammar for me to try to make Karen Kegg's job as my editor just a little bit easier. And when she first started doing my editing, I said to her, clearly I always thought I was a pretty good writer and pretty good in English, but I would see her 400 edits or more in a chapter, and I would say, clearly I need a lesson in commas and in punctuation and capitalization. And she laughed and said, most people do. And so Grammarly now cleans up a few of the mistakes before she has to clean up the rest. And I've learned to use Hemingway to just—
Good idea. That's a good idea for my Reiki articles.
Yes, it's a free software. I actually paid for the pro version because I write so much now, and I really like it. I actually I'm using something called Hemingway, just the free version, to analyze my sentence structure and see where I have too long of a sentence or that sort of thing. And then I haven't started using it yet, but when it is time I was struggling to find somebody to do the copy for my book, and there's actually a software for that as well. And so I love technology. It can, once you learn it, it can make life so much easier, can't it?
Yes. Just like my texting program, that was
right.
Quite a bit more challenging to set up, mostly because with my essential oil business, we set up classes on it. And so we set up these drip campaigns. So, learning how to do that was a little bit more daunting, but now that I know how to use it, this is really fun, and the different things that we can do with it. And
I agree. Honestly, those programs make my editing fun. And they don't do all the editing. Obviously, I have to go in and do some as well. But and it's a sense of accomplishment, isn't it?
Yes. Wow. I've been resisting that online scheduling thing for
Me too.
Years.
It was Jules Davis who said, Pam, you have to do this. And she told me the one she used, and she just used Square online scheduling. And I already use Square for billing and things in some instances, both with my essential oil business and Reiki. And so I thank her for giving me the nudge to get that in place, because I tell my husband now, I'm like, I love that program. It just makes my life so much easier.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a big one because a lot of times Reiki practitioners are high touch, but not high tech. And maybe they don't like the marketing, maybe they don't like the technology part. And if we're going to be entrepreneurs, you have to have a different mindset than the employee mindset. And so that's another big part of success consciousness is learning to make that shift from employee consciousness to entrepreneur consciousness and being a business owner and thinking about it and learning the aspects, or as we talked about, hiring it done for the things that are going to be hard or difficult, like creating your own website.
I don't do that. I'm in the middle of shifting my website right now, or I will be as soon as I get a little bit of space from the book. But I could never, my web guy is so good. I could never do what he does. So
Mhm.
I'm not even going to try. I just tell him what I want and he does it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's so many good things in your chapter to go over. I don't know how long you want to talk about this. We've hit about, oh, I don't know, a third or a half of what you've got in there so far.
There's a couple of things, and I'm naming your business in an earlier chapter. But one of the things that I will add to this chapter or the earlier chapter is once you have a name, or maybe it's already there, I can't even remember now. But once you have a name, it's usually important to go and register your name. And one of the things you and I chatted about earlier, and we're going to link to one of your articles about that. It's an article that you wrote with your CPA, I believe, about just how to set your business up. And there's things like starting a bank account and how do you want to set it up? Do you want to set it up as a sole proprietorship or a corporation, an LLC? So is there any suggestions you would have for people around some of those things and around like registering the name? That's usually something that it's usually your state or your province that once you have your business name, you need to go in and hire someone to do a name search and make sure nobody else has got that name. And then you register it. So anything like that you want, any advice or anything like that you'd like to?
Okay, sure. One thing that I did for my website, just probably purely by accident, when I started off my website for my business back in, I think, 1993, a long time ago, was I just made it my name. And I am so glad that I did that because for many years, the main focus of my business was counseling. And I still love counseling, but now the main focus of my business is Reiki. And so by having my name, then I had total flexibility to shift that focus and redo my website. And
Your website is KarenHarrison.net, right? So
yes.
yeah.
So I did that. And then also a few years back, I went from having just a regular sole proprietor to forming the LLC. And my CPA told me how to do that. All I had to do was go to the Secretary of State for my state and register my LLC. And then I went to another government website to get my EIN number, which is my employee identification number for my LLC. And all of that took me about 30 minutes to do. It wasn't hard. I had to go back to my CPA to ask a few questions about how do I fill out this or that. But I got that. And my checkbook is set up in the name of my LLC for my checking account. And I just run everything through that. Now, also years ago when I started my business, I named it Whole Life Center, but I didn't get that officially registered anywhere. I didn't make it the name of my website. So it's not a DBA or anything.
What's a DBA?
DBA, doing business as.
Okay.
So it's a legal entity. I never did anything with that. So that's just a name I have out there associated with my business because I just didn't really know any better. And now I've switched over more to just using Karen Harrison LLC. I think meeting with a CPA around all of that and possibly a lawyer if you want to get some input about the rules in your state or province or wherever you live so that you do it correctly. I know another colleague of mine created an S Corp, and that's another possibility, but it's a little bit more complicated accounting wise than an LLC. If you don't have many assets, you're probably fine to get along with just a regular sole proprietorship for a while. But if at some point your business is making more money or you have assets that you want to protect, then an LLC does give you some more protection for that.
And an LLC in Canada, we would call a corporation, is I believe the equivalent. And what's the other one that you mentioned? I don't know.
An S Corp.
S Corp.
I don't know enough to talk about an S Corp. Now, that article that you referred to, my CPA actually wrote it, and it was the handout to go with a podcast that we did on Reiki Call, which is on my website at KarenHarrison.net. But if you don't want to listen to the podcast and you want to just go right to the cheat sheet with the notes from the talk, then you can go to the article on my website. And I think Pam said that she would link to it where it talks about all of this topic.
Yeah, and I can link to the podcast too, if it's okay with you, Karen.
Sure.
So we'll link to both of those. And you also have some other fantastic articles about business success. And I'd love to, I'll link those to our podcast, as well as put some links in my book. Karen has graciously offered to allow that. And some of them you wrote on your own, some of them you wrote together with Colleen Benelli, and she also has graciously agreed to have those linked. And so I think that would be fantastic. Is there anything else that what are some of the obstacles that you notice to business skills and business success? Is there anything that stands out to you there?
Obstacles, probably our own mindset, our fears, things that we don't know how to do, thinking we're not good enough, or I don't know. I think the biggest obstacle is ourself, really.
Yes. I would have to agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think having the resource of the book that you've written will help people to organize all the different things that they need to think about. And then from the book, they can just create a plan for themselves. Okay, all right, I see I need to do all these different things. What do I do next? And then just meditate on Reiki and ask, okay, what's my next step? And who are the resources that I need to help me with that step? And then meditate on that and then take the next step.
Yeah.
Because meditation is good, but in order to birth the business, we have to take action on our guidance.
One of the things that I encourage people throughout the book is to do as well is to just be gentle with themselves, because sometimes we have a look at it and say, okay, I want a business, I want it right away, and then maybe burden ourselves with everything that we need to do and so forth. But a business, just like when we created the Animal Reiki course, just like creating this book, you're bringing form to the formless. And William Rand helped us understand that. He talks about the formless realm that actually helped bring Holy Fire Reiki into existence. And when you are bringing form to the formless, when you have the thought, it's already, or the ideas, it's already there, it already exists. And sometimes it just does take divine timing. It takes its own time to come in. So that's another thing. Karen, is there anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with before we wrap up today?
Sure. Here's a little quote from Deb Karpak, who also wrote a book called Creating, now I don't remember the title of it, something like Creating Your Reiki Business, but that's not the right title. Okay. Anyway, she just says, just feel the fear and do it anyway. Okay, give yourself Reiki, just take the next step. Guess what? A lot of fears are going to come up, most likely, unless you have just a lot of prior business skills. There's going to be a big learning curve. That's okay. You just start small, part-time, and you build it up as you go. and you look for resources and get help from people like Pam and her book. I think it's going to give you a lot of good guidance. You can also do a Reiki mentoring program. I know Pam also offers that. So all the resources are there. You don't have to do it on your own. And you have Reiki to support you every step of the way. And one of the things that I'm having a lot of fun doing in that formless to the form is, sorry, I got to get a sip of water.
Sure.
Asking Reiki to put into my mind what the end product looks like. So I do this when I write my articles. I just ask Reiki, okay, what do you want me to write about? Give me the topic. And then please just download that whole article to me so that all I have to do is sit down and type it up. And it often does work like that the whole thing just comes through. I'm really not having to put a lot of effort into it. I just have to have the time to sit down and allow those thoughts to come through. I activate Reiki before I start. And you can do the same with your business. Just ask it to show you the next step and how that looks. And then you just go create that from the vision that you saw and manifest it.
Absolutely. You can use the distance symbol to take you forward into what is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like? And make it happen. I love that, Karen. That's excellent advice. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I want to tell all the listeners, we wish you well. If you do have any blocks or barriers or resistance around the business skills or any of the stuff that we've chatted about today, I hope that your Reiki flowing as we've talked has lifted that from you. And just go ahead and invite the energy of confidence to flow through you. I think that every one of us is being asked to step forward now with our unique gifts and talents and with our ability to work with the Reiki energy or our access to the Reiki energy. And we're so grateful that you're here and that you're considering that. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Karen. Appreciate it so much. And we just want to say thank you to you, the listeners, and thank you for the light that you are in the world. Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.